Harry Hap Holmes is the first professional hockey player ever to be born in Aurora. He and his family lived on Center Street in the heart of Aurora for a number of years before he and his family moved to Collingwood, Ontario. Hap Holmes' Aurora connection has been researched locally by Aurora Historical Society member Jacqueline Stewart, who, when asked about Mr. Holmes, wrote, "Harry was born on the 21st of February, 1888. His father was Thomas George Holmes, who was sometimes described as a blacksmith, sometimes as a bolt maker. His mother was Elvira, whose maiden name was Holiday. Appropriately for Aurora's 150th anniversary year, her father, James Holiday, was on Aurora's first village council back in 1863. Mrs. Stewart also noted that the Holmes family moved from Aurora and that Harry was reported to be employed as a construction worker in Toronto while he was playing hockey. His whereabouts was researched through the next 17 years, and entrance documents to and from the United States was evidence of his hockey-playing lifestyle. The Hockey Hall of Fame, to which he was inducted posthumously in 1972, has an extensive record of his playing career, and he is described as one of the preeminent goaltenders of his era, excelling in all 5 top pro leagues from 1912 to 1928. He was always considered to be in the right place at the right time, and was loaned to the Toronto Arenas in January 1918 and helped the club win the Stanley Cup in the inaugural NHL season. A magnificent playoff performer, Holmes actually backstopped 2 Stanley Cup wins in Toronto and 1 each in Seattle and Victoria. He was the leading goalie 6 times in the Pacific Coast Hockey Association. Hap Holmes was also considered a heroic netminder and is forever recognized as being the first goalie to win the Stanley Cup with 4 different franchises. In his honor, since the 1948 season, the American Hockey League has named its top goaltending trophy the Hap Holmes Memorial Award, awarded to the goaltender who has the lowest goals against average in the league. This award has been won by goalie greats such as Johnny Bower, Roger Crozier, and Jerry Cheevers. When his playing days were done, Hap Holmes turned to coaching and minor league hockey. Hap Holmes died on June 27, 1941, at the age of 53, having moved to Florida for his health. The Toronto Star headed its obituary, "Star goalie of Seattle Nets obeys final call," with the subheading, "Harry Holmes' fine, clean career in sports ends this week." The final paragraph of the report reads, "Few men connected with hockey over the years gave more to the game than the quiet-voiced Holmes." While Harry Hap Holmes may be forgotten by a modern hockey fan, usually because of the era in which he played, he should be remembered fondly by us as a native son who played at the highest levels in Canada's most prestigious sport. We are proud to induct Harold Hap Holmes in the inaugural class of the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the presenter, Ron Weiss, and the nominator and the presenting sponsor, Jim Nother of Nother Signs, and I invite both to the podium to assist in the induction.
It's my pleasure to introduce Harold Hap Holmes tonight. I first heard of Hap Holmes when our MPP Frank Cleese wrote in the Provincial House earlier this year to inform members that Aurora was celebrating its 150th anniversary. And among other things, he noted that our town was the birthplace of the first goaltender ever to win 4 Stanley Cups. That got my attention, and I wanted to learn more. So I started with the Hockey Hall of Fame, and eventually was sent to their Hockey Resource Center. All of Hap's statistics were there. They were archived. His information was clear. Everything that was on there said that he was an Auroran. He was surely a superstar. If you compare his accomplishments now to when he played, 4 Stanley Cup, it was an amazing man. It was a different time, however, when Hap played. It was a time when the best crowds numbered 4,000 to 5,000 people. There was, of course, no television, and the lighting was so bad that the atmosphere was described as shadowy. There were no red and blue lines. The game had 7 players on each side, instead of the 5-a-side we are familiar with now. There were no red and blue lines. There were black lines. There were absolutely nothing that would characterize the game that we had right now. Hap had to wear cricket pads back in those early days as a goaltender. His job was very tough. He had to remain standing, and it was illegal to handle the puck. A penalty was called if that happened. He couldn't fall down on the puck or a penalty. So basically, he was a target in the middle of the net. You saw in that video that he held his stick in an unfamiliar position. That was a position because he had to play the puck. That's where goaltenders got their stick abilities at that time. He had to be ready to play it forward all the time. Now you see in many of his photos that he wore a cap, and this became his trademark. This was not to keep him warm, although the rinks in many places that he played were very cold during his time. It was for protection from the fans. Unlike our sedate fans in the Platinum section of Leaf Nation, fans at that time were highly loyal and very demonstrative towards their home teams. Various beverages were consumed to keep them warm. And goaltenders were a very easy target, standing at either ends. As the story goes, during one game, Hap had some beverage thrown on him, and as a joke, he came out in the second period sporting this cap to protect him, and the trademark was set for the rest of his playing career. Now, beyond the Hockey Resource Center, I have both the town and the Historical Society to thank for doing some very heavy lifting on Hap's Aurora connection. I first contacted Vanessa Hicks at the town, who directed me to Jacqueline Stewart of the Historical Society that was identified on the video. Without hesitation, she dove in a matter of days. She consulted the town's assessment rolls. Now imagine that, assessment rolls for taxes and assessment records back in 1888. We have those records available. And there was a family tree there. She provided evidence of Hap's family residence on Center Street, number 12 or number 14, but it's not there anymore. It apparently burned down in the mid-30s. Those entrance and exit records are very detailed, and it identified his whereabouts and where he went back and forth because of his hockey playing career, but it also showed that he went to Australia and came back. So I guess Hap had those means because of his hockey playing lifestyle to be able to do things that many others didn't. Now, we have unfortunately been able to find a living relative in the area, and his family tree grows a bit cold in the early part of the 20th century. But it's clear that Hap Holmes was born in Aurora. All of his illustrious documentation at the Hockey Hall of Fame includes and verifies Aurora as his birthplace. I'm therefore happy the Induction Committee found his Aurora heritage to be worthy of induction into our Sports Hall of Fame as an inaugural inductee. So I will ask Kate Collins, who is the chair of the Induction Committee, to come forward and accept the plaque and Hap's induction on behalf of Mr. Holmes. Kate? Now, as she makes it to the podium, I would also like to thank her and the entire Induction Committee for the fine job they've undertaken in developing the nomination, selection, and induction processes that have led us to this ceremony tonight. Their efforts were thoughtful, they were thorough, and highly detailed, and we're all grateful for their volunteer effort and for bringing us such fine inaugural members to the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. Kate Collins.
MPP Cleese, Mayor Daw, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I never knew Hap Holmes, but I sure wish I could have met him and talked about his glory days. I would have loved to have chatted about how he played during a time where modest financial compensation would have been supplemented by the richness of the camaraderie on the team bus. How he may have struggled to initiate yet another conversation with family about being traded and having to move across provinces. What his worst injury was and what he did to recover. Which of his teammates he admired and which he tolerated. There is a lot of pressure on a goalie, especially in a tight scoring game. How did he handle that pressure? Who were his allies? What did it feel like to hoist the Stanley Cup? It's the stuff that movies and now Aurora Sports Hall of Fame inductees are made of. Yet perhaps his not being here among and in front of us tonight reminds us that it's never too late to celebrate past achievements, and it cues us to make the most of the present by complimenting those who contribute today to the sports in which we participate. I will not speak of his achievements, for our local media partners, especially the Auroran, have done an exemplary job in their publishing of profiles. Tonight's video tribute will have filled in any additional gaps of information you may have wanted to know about this incredible man, guided by nominator Ron Weiss and with the support of the Aurora Historical Society. So how does one possibly represent what his wishes would have been? Well, I guess you try and do that from the heart with some safe assumptions. He would most certainly have thanked the sponsor of his award, Nother Signs, for their generosity. He would have offered his congratulations to Robert Bedard, Cal Bouchard, Jim Elder, Brian Stemmel, Norm Stendon, and Frank Stronach on sharing the 2013 slate of inductions. He absolutely would have given a nod of thanks to the coaches and teammates who peppered his career and no doubt became long-term friends outside of the rink. I am, however, at a loss to attempt to convey what he may have said to his family and friends, for this is often the hardest and indeed the most emotional thanks any of us attempt to give. He may have remained stoic, or there may have been a tear, but rest assured he would have, in his own way, touched the hearts of those he knew had made sacrifices in support of his dream. As chair of the induction committee, I was honored to be given this acceptance role this evening. However, it would be self-serving of me to do it alone. So I will accept this honor for Hap Holmes on his behalf with all of you here tonight whose passion for sport is evident, with tonight's event organizers, the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, Board of Governors and Organizing Committee, and the anonymous members of the selection panel whose meticulous evaluations and thoughtful debates these past months ensured excellence in year one. And perhaps most importantly, I accept this honor for Hap Holmes with the players, especially the goalies, who play for the Aurora Panthers, the Aurora Tigers, in the Aurora Minor Hockey Association, the Central York Girls Hockey Association, Opti Hockey, York Old Timers, and every pickup and spontaneous street-level game that breaks out in our town. It is for them that Hap Holmes' stand-up playing style as a goalie left a stand-up legacy for generations who have and will certainly follow. Thank you.
To present posthumously inductee Harold Hap Holmes.